I am not going to tell you how to fix your marriage. I'm not going to tell you what you need to do in order to have a better marriage. I'm not going to give you the tips on what it takes to be successful in marriage because you already know. It's not about not knowing what to do in your relationship, nor is it about not doing it because many of us are doing the right things and it's still not working. So then we need to ask the question, how come? Could it be that it's not that we don't know what to do or that we're even not doing the right things, but that we are also in turn doing the wrong things? That we are self sabotaging our own relationships, that we are inserting on top of all the right things a bunch of wrong things that if we would simply stop doing, we would see fruit and results and changes for the better. It's like that guy who said, I just wish I knew where I was going to die, and then I'd never go there, right? If we could find out what errors we are making and stop making those errors, things would improve. Similar to our health. We know what to eat. We know to eat healthy. It's not that we're not eating healthy. A lot of us do kind of hit a salad every now and then. It's just we eat too many honey buns on side as well, right? It's the things that we are doing that are destroying the relationship that if we stop doing, we could fix the entire situation. Let's talk about those things. There are three of them that we see continuously in our marriage and family health and life coaching practice. The number one thing we hear when people come to our office is that we don't communicate. Now, that's interesting because you are living together, you are married, you have children, you have bills to pay, you are communicating, but you're not getting through to each other on the things that really matter. That's what you're telling us. And so let's explore that together. Could it be, number one, that the biggest thing that we are doing destroying our relationships is avoiding the hard conversations? When I tell you the problem is never the problem, it is astonishing how much we fight about something other than the thing we really do need to fight about because we are not being heard, we are not being seen, we cannot get our point across. And so we end up fighting about a whole bunch of other things. Why is that? It is because deep down inside, it is too uncomfortable to face the reality of what's really going on. And so we avoid it at all costs through a variety of different tactics. What are the tactics? Let's break these down. First one is anger. If we get angry enough and yell and scream and cuss and punch holes in the walls, then our spouse doesn't want to deal with that. So if I get angry every time you bring something up to me, then you're going to not bring it up because you don't want to deal with that mood. And so what do I do? By getting angry in this outburst, whenever you try to address something with me, I avoid the uncomfortable conversation. It's not even that I'm angry about what you're talking about. I think I am. And that's why I'm getting all irritated and blowing up. But really deep inside, what I'm trying to do is avoid the hard conversations. Another tactic is the silent treatment. Nobody wants to be rejected, ignored in their own house, put on red for days on end. So, what happens when you try to talk with me and address something and I just ghost you? Well, you don't want to talk about that anymore with me. So you stop bringing it up. Why? Because I am just like the angry person now using a different manipulative tactic in order to avoid having a hard conversation. If you, for a third example, bring something up, hey, Aaron, you are not taking out the trash. And I say, hey, ma'am, well, you're not washing the dishes. What I am doing now is deflecting the conversation away from the topic to a whole nother topic. Instead of processing the fact that I'm not doing the dishes and then you not doing the whatever example I said you weren't doing, we deflect off of the situation at hand in order to take the spotlight off of our own behavior and put it on something else because addressing my behavior is uncomfortable. This tactic of, avoiding the conversations because, oh, I just don't like conflict or I'm a people pleaser or, whatever excuse we come up with, it works for 10 days. It is easier this week to not have a big old fight with our spouse. It doesn't work for 10 years because 10 years down the line, it becomes disdain, which becomes bitterness, which becomes now the person sneezes the wrong way, which is any kind of way, and you're ready to get a divorce. That is the result of years and years of avoiding hard conversations. If we want to communicate in our marriages, we don't need to go figure out the 5 ways to talk the right way, how to communicate in a secret new hack with our spouse. It's none of that. It's the fact that when it's time to communicate, we don't want to feel uncomfortable. And so we don't. A workaround solution that my wife and I used for ourselves that I'd like to share with you is an idea we came up with to start writing down on our notes apps on our phones when the other person did something throughout the week that really got under our skin. So I had her name at the top, Cecilia, and then I would write down the things she would do that bothered me. And then she had my name on the top of one of her notes and it said handsome Aaron. And she would write down all the things that yeah, you thought I was gonna, overlook that joke, right? Yeah. She had handsome Aaron and would write down the things I did wrong. Well, at the end of the week on Saturday mornings, 9 o'clock, we would go to PJ's and she would get her a skinny vanilla latte. I would give me a chocolate muffin and straight black espresso. And we would talk about the things on our notes. Now, the reason we did it in public is because we were pastoring at the time in this city. And as pastors, we weren't going to be dragged out fighting, cussing, and screaming and doing the silent treatment and playing all those little games we play as people. We weren't going to do that in public because we married. We had to hey, God bless you. Yeah, good to see you. And just kind of argue under our breath, right? But it forced us to communicate civilly, doing it out in public. I recommend public for that particular reason. Now, you can pick where you want to pick. It can be, I've heard of folks doing it in the grocery stores, Walmart, sitting in restaurants, walking through the mall. There's all kind of ways you can do this. But the point is also, once we would open up the list, half the things were irrelevant. They did not bother us anymore. I no longer cared about the fact that she left her socks. Well, actually, that's not true. That's still okay. We need therapy too. But um, we would sit there, open up our list, and say, oh, actually, you know what? Those socks really aren't worth fighting about. It's irrelevant. This item, that's stupid. This item, actually, that was me being dumb. Okay, this one, however, is something worth addressing. And so now we were actually fighting about the thing worth fighting about, and we were doing it in a way that was civil and where we could both be heard and understood. I recommend this approach because it takes the re- response of, I'm going to get angry, I'm going to give you the silent treatment, we're doing it out of emotion. It eliminates all of that. But at the same time, having it scheduled and going have the conversation forced us to have the conversation. And no, it wasn't always comfortable. In fact, it usually wasn't ever, except for the black espresso and the chocolate muffin. That was very comfortable. But we had the conversations. And so I want to encourage you, it's not going to be comfortable, but there's no secret or easy way or trick or hack around this. If you want to communicate in your marriage, you have to communicate. Number two, this is going to make a generalization on gender, and it's not always going to apply, but for the most part, men rejuvenate by disconnecting, women rejuvenate by connecting. So, what I'm getting into right here is a wife, generally again speaking, wife pressuring her husband to spend time, spend time, spend time. Let's connect. Be present with me. Look at me in the eyes. Tell me all these sweet things. Look at me and tell me that you love me and spend 10 hours with me and that type of thing. While on the flip side, the husband who works, comes home, wants to watch the game, don't talk to me, and I'm going fishing on the weekend and I'm going to hang out with my friends, but please get out of my face. I can't handle this. I'm tired. Now, I am using this as two extremes to illustrate this tension that we face in our marriages quite often. That being, again, generally speaking, you could flip the gender. Sometimes it's the woman and the man, vice versa. But generally speaking, a woman feeling like she is not getting enough quality time with her husband, while a husband feeling like he is getting smothered or not enough space from his wife. The reason for this tension is like I initiated with this second point here. Men rejuvenate by disconnecting, women rejuvenate by connecting. The tension arises when we don't understand this about ourselves, we don't understand this about our spouse, and we are both therefore fighting for the same thing, which is rejuvenation, but we go about it in two totally different ways. So we're actually pulling away from the other person while trying to accomplish the very same thing. The workaround for this is now understanding it to schedule it or plan it or to be intentional with what we're doing. So the way we did this, the first year of marriage, we didn't do this. We fought about this constantly. And I would tell my wife I needed space, and she would tell me she needed quality time. And we just didn't get it. Like I wish I would have seen this video when I got married. Truthfully, it would have saved us a lot of frustration and misunderstanding. Once we realized that we were fighting for the same thing, for connection and rejuvenation for her and disconnection and rejuvenation for me, we literally just scheduled it. I quit saying, I don't want to be around you, which is a terrible thing to have been saying to my wife, to it's not that I don't want to be with you. It's just that for a little while, I need to be with me. So I was a teacher at the time. On Wednesdays, as soon as the bell rang, I would be in my car before the students were on the bus. I didn't do lesson plans. I didn't grade papers. I didn't check email. I was in the car on my way to Domino's. Pick me up a thin crust pepperoni pizza, large. If you are thin crust people, hit me up in the comments. Yes, hallelujah, that's good preaching. I'd pick me up a pizza, get home, rush into the bedroom, and turn on some movies. And from 3 o'clock until 9 o'clock, my wife would leave me in the room to watch movies and eat pizza. However, the Saturday morning coffee, I know that wasn't fun for her, but women have a need for intimate conversation, even if it's unpleasant conversation. So that was filling her cup. But then we also had date nights. And so we would intentionally go out and connect. And I would do the look her in the eye and tell her that she's important. And, you know, I'm being facetious, but at the same time, I'm not. In other words, we had a scheduled time of the week for Aaron, husband, me time, and a scheduled time in the week for Cecilia, wife, our time. It was very intentional. And so I would not impose or infringe upon her time by saying, oh, I'm too tired. I can't go out on this date that I told you I would take you on. Well, at the same time, she wouldn't tell me on Wednesdays, hey, I know you're trying to eat a pizza and watch a show, but I need to tell you about my feelings right now. Like we respected the fact that we both needed something and we gave it to each other and supported each other through the process. That is what we want to do. You want to figure out when is a good time for the person who needs the space to have the space freely without being guilt tripped and told, oh, you don't love me, and all the little games that we play to try to manipulatively tell somebody that I want you to spend more time with me. We need to figure out how to do that. While at the same time, we need to plan and stick to dating somebody and investing in them and spending time connecting with them because this is the person who we love and they need to be loved. And there's nothing wrong with us intentionally going about loving them. It's pretty simple. It's just hard because we don't do this and therefore we sabotage our own marriage. Number three, this is going to be a very specific case, not applying to every single person because not everybody goes through an affair. But if an affair is present or is somewhat in the past, this is going to be paramount. I have seen couples get through affairs. I have not seen couples get through lies. Secrets about phones and apps and whereabouts and messages and pics, secrets about them destroy intimacy, trust, and any ability to rebuild or recover. An affair destroys it, but can be repaired when everything is put on the table, where true heartfelt repentance, like I genuinely know that I messed up. It is my fault, not yours, not because you weren't enough or you didn't do this and you didn't do that, but I was selfish. I destroyed our trust. Here's everything that I did. Here's the messages. Here's who it was with, XYZ. When that is put on the table, people can start getting through the situation. But affairs do not start with sex, they start with secrets. And so, for affairs to continue, we need secrets. When secrets are brought to the light and the offended, hurt spouse is told or shown, and all honesty is on the table, and accountability is now in place, and we can see each other's phones freely, and we can ask about each other's whereabouts without having a big old fiasco in return, now we can start rebuilding trust. If you are going through a very painful affair, an emotional affair, physical affair, any type of cheating or breach of trust, that is a devastating experience. It's hard for both people. It's challenging to get through, but I want to encourage you with this. I know for a fact you can get through it. I highly doubt you can do it unless all the truth is put on the table. It is baffling that the person who is continuing to lie and duck and hide, the only way truth comes out is whenever you get caught again. The only thing that's on the table, the only thing you did is what the hurt spouse caught you doing, and there's nothing else. That's very rare. It's very odd. That doesn't even make logical sense. But the other component to this is that the hurt spouse knows. Like when everything is put on the table, I have seen something happen in the hurt spouse that it's like a muscle relaxes. It's like, okay, I see it. But when there's still secrets, it's like turmoil inside. The person just can't shake it. They keep questioning and they just know that something's still off. That intuition, that discernment, it's there and they just can't shake it. And so that prohibits intimacy. So can we get through an affair? Yes. Can we get through lies, especially continued lies about an affair? I doubt it. So if we're going to have successful marriages, again, you know what to do. You know to spend time together, to have sex, to share your dreams, to support each other. You know how to have a good marriage. It's not about what we're not knowing. It's about what we are doing that we need to stop. Self sabotaging our relationships by avoiding hard conversations, by not putting all the truth on the table, by not giving the person who needs space, by not giving the person who needs connection. We are hurting our own marriages. If we simply stop doing these things that are destroying our marriages, then chances are we could really step into having a much more successful marriage.